That's the kind of thing that can kill them.
Yes.
They wanted for,
About the splash pad in Clemens Crossing Pool. It was sort of approved a few years ago, and then it disappeared, and then it's not in the budget anywhere right now. And do you know anything about it?
Yeah, we've kind of, all the significant non-life safety upgrades for the pools have been pushed back a couple years as we catch up from COVID. There's some of the bigger projects, so we've had to put several projects on hold, and so a lot of the work there was
'26, 2024 meeting of the Columbia Association Board of Directors. My name is Bill Santos. I am the chair. We'll start off tonight with our roll call. We have Colin.
Here.
Reg.
here.
Karen.
Here.
Chris. Chris is going to join us online. Mike.
Here.
Eric.
here.
Sean.
Here.
Paul.
Ringo.
Ashley.
Here.
And Sky.
Here.
All right, so good job there. Let's see. Tonight, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have a cell phone or personal device, please mute it or turn it off. We're going to have a lot of discussion tonight. We don't want anyone's comments to be overtaken by a ringing phone This meeting will be streamed. It's a hybrid meeting. It's being streamed right now and will be available for viewing later on YouTube. We will have guests both online and in the room, and that gets us started. First thing, order of business, announcements of closed meetings. It has been 2 weeks since our last meeting. We had one closed meeting of the Audit Committee that was held on September 23rd, 2024, chaired by Karen Emery, who did a great job. Let's see, members of the committee present: Karen Emery, Tim Redmond, Reg Avery, and Paul Rader. The vote to close was 4-0. It was closed at, what was it, 7:38, and opened back at 8:46. Reason for closing, Homeowners Association Act 11B 111, 4, Roman numeral I and IV. Right. Thank you for that bit of paperwork there. First up, the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any discussion on the agenda for tonight? Okay, just really quick, just to get us back in. Ashley, how do you vote?
What am I voting on?
Approval of the agenda?
Yeah, yes.
All right. Sky?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and there we go. 9-0-0. Thank you all. All right. Moving on next, the Columbia update. Sean?
All right, so we had an update a few weeks ago, so I have a bittersweet Columbia update tonight. After 9 years of exemplary service, Lynn Swartz, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, is going to be parting ways with us in early March. Lynn's many accomplishments here at CA include implementing CA's first budget application, providing high-level data analytics and insights in the membership plan restructuring, building a cash management and forecasting infrastructure, developing a team of high-performing professionals in accounting and finance, and providing compliance and business thought partnerships throughout the organization. In my short time here, Lynn's position is so vital. She does so much and provides so much support. She's thorough. She does an amazing job. I've only known you a short time, and you'll be missed greatly. So the staff, the SLT, are very upset. We're happy for Lynn, and Lynn is also going to help us in the transition. So we'll be looking to replace her position going forward.
Thank you for your service, Lynn. Thank you so much.
We'll miss you.
Yeah. We're going to have a long parade here. We'll probably thank you every meeting from here on out, so. All right. Is that all? Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to resident speak out. We have 3 members that wish to speak out tonight. Our first will be Amy Bennett, who I believe will be joining us virtually. Amy, are you with us? Amy?
You might want to come back to her. It takes a little time.
Okay. All right, we'll go up next, Ginny Thomas. Ginny, welcome back to the Board of Directors.
Thank you, Bill. I understand you don't have any speakers, so I get 15 minutes. Thanks, Bill.
Here we go.
All right. Good evening. I heard that CA led a $100,000 contract to a company to manage 3 of the outdoor pools. I have a few questions regarding the process. Was an RFP issued on the contract? What was the need? What did CA hope to accomplish? When will you have the results of the contract on a CA board agenda? What were the deliverables? How were the 3 pools chosen? Was one of the deliverables to increase the attendance at a pool with low attendance? If so, what was the outcome? Is there a written report the public could read on this contract? Will the contract be renewed next year, and will the number of pools be expanded? What was the CA's responsibility regarding the 3 pools? I assume, or did CA have to pay for staff, pool repairs, cleaning the pool, restrooms and showers, etc.? Did these pools close early? And that's it for that subject. And quick on an unrelated pool issue, I support CA offering the pools, outdoor and the swim center as part of the lien payment at no additional cost to the residents. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Ginny? Karen?
Ginny, what would it mean to the residents of Oakland Mills to have their pools at no additional cost?
Would be fantastic, because I'm really concerned about people that either can't afford it or, at one level, others that are retired. And I think it's important to have the exercise, both from a mental health point of view and a physical point of view. That's why I included the swim center in there, because that would be year-round. Although I just tried to get a water aerobics class that I haven't done in years, and I found out you need 48 hours to call. You can't call before that. So I wanted to go Saturday morning and Sunday morning for the first time in years. So I just made the reservation for Saturday morning. Now I got to remember to call on Friday to get the reservation for Sunday. Seems a little bit, in the old days, we just walked into a water aerobics class, and especially at the swim center, you have the deep water and the shallow water. So I don't know if you can look into that, and is it really necessary?
Thanks, Ginny.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Reg?
Yeah, real quick question, Jenny. You had a long list of items that you wanted an answer for. Are you expecting one tonight, or are you expecting CA Board to come back?
No, I'm not expecting it tonight. What I was really asking is, to me, this seems like something different that you're doing. It costs $100,000, so that's residents' money. And it would seem like you'd want a report. And I was asking when, making the assumption you would get one at a public meeting so that people could attend and learn the results. So I was asking, is this going to be at a public meeting? And if so, these are just some of the questions that I hope would be answered.
Okay. Sky?
It seems to me I would have started first with the head of aquatics, and I'm wondering if you, because it seems to be more of an operational than a policy issue, have you sought some of these answers from the aquatics management?
No, because I don't believe the public has a right to know, and this is a place where the public would hear on issues, because this is where openness and transparency would occur. If I just meet with the aquatics director, that's not going to be something that everybody else will know about. You probably could have the aquatics director come here to your public meeting and have it explained, but that way others could hear about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Just following on Reg's line, very good question, Reg. Thank you. If you could submit that list of questions in writing, that would be super helpful, okay?
Be happy to. I'll send the email to you, to everybody.
That'd be great. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
All right. All right. Joel Hurwitz is next up.
Evening.
Hi, good evening, Joel.
I thought Bill Campbell signed up as well, but apparently not. Joe Hurwitz from Harper's Choice, record member of the Harper's Choice Community Association Board, speaking for myself. But in that regard, I'd like to thank Open Space and Chris Clement, people that I had them to upright the falling over cemetery obelisk shaft at the Harper's Choice Dorsey Simpson Cemetery. I don't know if it got put into any of the president's things earlier in the summer, but been falling over for decades, and who knew that there were 2 bases below the level that were buried in the ground. I've been trying to find out how to go about putting up a QR code marker and link it to somewhere, but the problem is what to say about the history of it. So I'm working on that, but thank you. Regarding pools, the underlying discussion that Karen's going to apparently talk about later deals with the residents who are the tenants, really, which you heard about prior meeting from Liz Hammond. So how do you go about getting the tenants to know that they're lien paying people? Terry Hill's bill from last legislative session would have dealt with that. Don't know if she's going to bring it or something similar back this year. But if need to work with the villages and CA to give people the rights under being a resident of Columbia. In that regard, in legislation, the memo says that you don't have any legislation that uniquely impacts Columbia Association. Well, if you wait long until you only get Cherry Hill type bill, you're going to wait a long time and miss all the bills that impact you, but not uniquely. Two of them being the county council's bills on the inspector general, which apparently CA will be party to the extent that you receive funds from the county. So I haven't understood why you're not tracking that. You also didn't track that one of your members earlier in the summer tried to get appointed to the Alcoholic Beverage Hearing Board, and I pointed out, and I appreciate person and county and the administration for withdrawing it because none of you are qualified for being on the alcohol board because of the 4 liquor licenses that CA has on its property under its own name or the tenants that you've rented it to. So you didn't track that either. So time's about up. So any questions?
All right, thanks, Joel. Thanks very much. Reg has a question for you.
All right, Joel. I'm going to be honest with you. I had a hard time following what you were asking of us or what you were trying to communicate to us. So if you could write it down and send it in, that would be very helpful because I really could not follow. It was all you were all over the map. That would be very helpful to us.
I thanked you. I urged the general counsel to track other things, and I said you need to deal with the tenants that Liz Hammond spoke to you about.
All right, did that answer your question, Reg?
No, not really, but that's okay. We can go.
Okay, that's okay. Thanks. All right, anybody else got a question for Joel? Thank you. All right, want to go ahead and circle back to Amy Bennett. Has Amy had a chance to get online? Okay. All right, I think we'll move on then to the bulk of our meeting.
Excuse me. I signed up this weekend to make a presentation. I received an email response.
I don't have a good answer for you, sir. I have the list of speakers here.
You can either say I can or I can't speak. That's the answer.
All right.
You got confirmation?
I got confirmation in an email.
I'll leave it up to just a straw poll of the board. Anybody, we're kind of ahead of schedule here.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Mr. Campbell, I did not know about this, but
Well,
we certainly have some time here.
Things happen.
And it's,
Good evening. I'm Bill Campbell. I'm a 50-year resident of Columbia, and I've got 30 years' experience as a senior financial executive. And when I received my assessment bill this year, I decided to try to figure out if I was getting good value for the money that I was giving you. And unfortunately, I don't think I am. And so I'm having a packet sent to you. One is my resume, so you can check and see that I'm not somebody that's a conspiracy theorist. I've got the background. In your package, you're going to find 3 things. One is my resume. The other is an analysis for what I call no additional cost pools. I'm not going to go through it because I only have 3 minutes, but because some people are visual learners and not, I've done a chart here of your free cash over the next few years up to 2032 and what this would cost. We can afford this very easily. And I've been very conservative on the figures because if you present the worst case and you can still afford it, it's doable. The other thing that I discovered when I was doing my analysis is an equity issue. We have 1,600 people that either get low income or Columbia points. I think that stigmatizes a certain section of the community, and I really feel very strongly that that's the wrong thing to do. And in this analysis, we could take care of that by making them just have a membership and not have to go through the hoops of applying and proving that they're poor, or children that are going to have to work hard in school. In my neighborhood of my village of Owen Brown, if you are a poor, I mean economically poor student, your chances of reading on grade or doing math on grade is less than 10%. And I feel that that's an impediment. The point system, although it is well-intentioned, I think it's having the wrong result. Also, as I understand, depending on where you go to school and where you live, you may qualify technically for the program, but you won't get it because you're in the wrong neighborhood or something. So I would please ask you to review this. On my resume, it has my contact information. I'd be happy to talk to any board member, any staff member, Mr. McManus, the president, and go through this stuff in detail. And I certainly hope that you can do this. On average, we pay over $1,200 a year for our, you're shaking your head no?
Excuse me.
Okay. No, am I incorrect? Okay, what is it? Gee, $100 off. Okay, if in River Hill, I'd pay twice that much. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for making an exception to your rule.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Does anybody have any questions? Eric?
Yes, I'm looking at this graph and I see a nonlinearity between fiscal years 29 and 30.
Yeah,
Can you explain that?
in 2030, you retire all of your debt, right?
The debt we have now.
Yes, the debt you have now. And that will free up over $5 million more a year. Won't it?
No, we don't, we would expect to be issuing debt in between now and then.
Well, even with you issuing debt or doing things like buying commercial property like a headquarters, you would still have plenty of money to do that over and above giving no additional cost pools to the residents. If in your analysis the staff feels that the play option, which I used, which is the worst case, it comes to about $2.8 million a year. That's the worst case. I think that looking at it, you could probably reduce the cost down. You're only looking at the operating cost differences. The fixed costs are already taken care of. So I think that the total program would be less than $1 million a year.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, we'll move on to our agenda now. First up is our consent agenda, which is the draft minutes from our September 12th, 2024 meeting. So, any objection to the consent agenda? So that is approved. There we go. Next up, old business. Sean, we have an update on the strategic plan?
Yes. So just a short update. Internally, the staff have been working on the strategic plan. The work that's been completed to date is in your packet, but I'll go over it. The internal team, the SLT, and the staff that we have assisting have concluded their review and analysis of the past plans, the strategic planning draft plan, and the work products that were done to date with the staff, and the board, and other stakeholder groups. Many of you have been very accommodating to be interviewed individually with Judell and Campbell and other members of the senior leadership team. So thank you for that. I think there may be one or two left. Judell has done an amazing job. I think anyone that sat in with her, she's got a great demeanor and asks great questions. So we'll be wrapping those up. And once complete, we'll be sharing what we've heard. And the next steps, now we're entering to phase 2 after this, and we'll be finalizing the schedule, but also creating the outline for the board to review in the coming meetings, in which once we have the outline done, we'll go towards finalizing the plan for January. We're on schedule.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Sean on the strategic plan update from the board? Reg?
Just one thing, and I thought you may have mentioned it, but it may have passed through my ears. The interviews that we had, would you give us the results of that, or how that all fanned out? Is that part of what you will be?
Yes, we'll be
discussing with us?
providing that, yes,
Okay.
as part of the outline. But we have asked, as many of you know, to kind of prioritize some of the strategic focus areas. So we'll be putting that together and then letting the board know kind of how that all played out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Karen?
Yeah, Sean, do you and Judell have any plans to include the villages in any of your discussions and interviews? I'm just curious. I was giving an update to the village board in Oakland Mills on Tuesday, and I think they want to be involved, but they don't want to. They would rather not be involved in like the blue sky kind of stuff that we were doing in our interview. They'd like to actually understand the nitty-gritty details a little bit more. There's some very specific things that they're interested in regarding open space, and so I'm wondering if you have any plans to talk to the village boards.
That would really extend the process. I think the village boards, there were a number of stakeholders that were able to contribute as part of the consultants' work. So we're taking that. What we can do is when we have a draft plan for the board to start evaluating, share that with the villages and
I would like
ask for
that,
input
yeah.
on that. But it would be a lot of effort. I don't think we'd have time to work with all the village boards to have them provide independent input again. And I think there may be some added input, which we can have them share once we have the draft complete.
I think that's fair, yeah. If they could be included at that point, I would like that.
All right, thank you, Karen. Eric?
Do you have a target date for a vote on this?
The board had asked for January.
Okay, and are we on track for that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right. Moving on to new business. We are cooking. Of course, this is going to be the break here. We've allotted 60 minutes to discuss the strategic portion of our budget discussion. Just to kick things off, I sent around an email to the board earlier today. And like I said, we're doing this as a strategic discussion. We're not going to be discussing particular tot lots that need to be renovated or built, or any new programs that are specific to another, body pump class at the athletic club or anything. But we're talking higher level, open space, data and technology. We certainly want to philosophically discuss the rate and the cap, grants, those kind of things. So we're going to start off, I guess, Sky, do you have any particular issue that you wanted to start with?
About the budget?
Yes, concerning the strategic plan of the budget.
One thing I have been thinking about is last year's budget was passed by a vote of 8-2, I believe, or 7. Yeah. Sorry. And I'm just real curious. Both Karen and Eric voted against accepting the budget, and I'm just wondering why, and based on what things you felt were not in the budget or were in the budget and shouldn't be, so we can talk about them and get a better consensus this year?
I can answer.
All right, Karen and then Eric.
Yeah, I voted against the budget because I couldn't tell how the budget tied to the work that CA was doing. I didn't have any confidence that I could use that budget to say, oh yeah, this supports this supports that. It felt like I just couldn't do that. In fact, I had that conversation with Sean earlier this year, is that is one of the things I would really like to understand is, and I'll use the example that I used, is that, like I would like to see us do things around, and Sean has a goal for this now, the, what did you call it? Natural resources plan, right? So like where is that in the budget? How can I understand that that's in there? Where are the plans that I get to see, that show me that, we're progressing against these plans that we've made? I think that Keith and I, in the very beginning of the budget process, had a whole list of things that we came up, that we would really like the plan to do this, we'd really like to do this. And we're really expecting to see plans for things. So Ginny was talking about, we just outsourced 3 of our pools. I've never seen a plan for that. Is that in the budget somewhere? How do I understand that? Those are the kinds of things that I don't think that the board sees, and maybe some of it's too much in the weeds, but the work that we're doing here, how does it tie to what I see in the budget?
All right, Eric?
So one of the things I looked at is how much value we're getting for our annual charge. And when I look at our budget, when it compares to other similar HOAs in the area, I see that our residents are paying a lot. In River Hill, we're paying a lot more than $1,100, for example. But I don't feel like we're getting enough value for that. A lot of other HOAs, if they've got pools, they're included with the annual charge. We've got to pay extra for those. And I feel like we can do more to provide a better value, whether it's dropping the annual charge, including the pools, or including the play membership as part of the annual charge. I think there's a lot we can do to provide a better value, especially when we look at the financials this year, and we're already $2 million above budget. I think we're doing well financially. We've got a lot of revenue coming in, but I think we can start using that to provide better value to our residents. And that's what I want to see going forward.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to come up with a strategic topic for the staff? Mike?
Yeah, I think overall we should probably continue basically with the same strategy that we've had for the last year. I don't think we've had a lot of in-depth conversations to make any big changes. I think that based on the results of the survey we saw and just a lot of anecdotes we hear from people, that open space should continue to be the #1 priority for CA. And I don't just mean like the people that work for Chris, but all of the associated capital projects and the environmental efforts that go along with open space. I'd like to see sustainability continue to be invested in so that we're building the solar projects that I think we're starting to work on. I think that's a good thing. I'd like to see CA emphasizing the quality of its service, so making sure that we're investing enough in maintenance, and again, to include capital, Category 3, Capital 3, to keep up with maintenance on all our assets. And also making sure that we have the staff that are, available and motivated to provide good service. I think the emergency reserve is a good thing to continue. I think continuing to invest in information technology is a good idea, including the rollout of this new CRM. I think a lot of us have expressed concerns about knowledge management for the board, so I think I would like to see that rolled up in there as well. I don't think we should change the assessment rate. I don't think we should be changing membership fees. I think the current strategy, as I understand it, is to provide competitive market rates for non-residents, to provide a generous discount for residents, and to provide additional subsidies for income qualified folks. I think that is the right strategy for membership fees. The one change, or one of the few changes I'd like to get everyone's pulse on is I would be open to increasing the cap to 5%. For two benefits, it would slowly increase CA's revenue, but more than that, it would kind of reduce inequity in the out years where new residents will be paying significantly higher rates than legacy residents. And so just kind of reducing that. I'd like to, some of our more, I don't know what to say, like bourgeois amenities, like golf, we should try to make sure those are revenue neutral, if not contributing to an increase in net assets. Another large change is I would really like us to look for opportunities to close or repurpose underused amenities. So I'll just say I really don't think we need 23 outdoor pools. And then I think we need to pretty quickly decide whether or not we're going to issue grants and include that into the budget, because I know that over the past few years that has kind of come up at the last second, and I don't think we should do that this year. So I don't have a huge dog in that fight of whether to do some grants or not, but just to make sure that we reach that decision early on.
Okay.
I know that was a lot.
You took up a lot there, so thank you for all that information, but.
I'll say, let me just focus on the four main points. Largely keep the same. Look at underused amenities and continue to look for efficiencies there. And I want to get everyone's pulse on whether they're willing to raise the cap.
Okay, all right. Eric?
So, no, I do not want to raise the cap. I don't want to raise our assessment. We already pay plenty. We pay enough. And as I said further, we need to do more to provide better value. And what I'm hearing from the other side here is we need to charge people more and give people less by closing things, by reducing services. That's why I'm hearing from the other side of the table here. And that's doing just the opposite. We need to be providing either more services or charging less for our residents. That's what value is. It's services divided by cost. And we either need to improve value, we need to either reduce costs or improve services. And that's why I think it's essential that we strongly consider making the pool memberships no added cost for our residents. So we could set the play membership to zero for residents, set the CA Fit and Play membership equal to the OneFit membership rates, and that will allow all our residents to use the pools because they're already paying for it through their annual charge, because the annual charge goes to support it. And this is also an inclusion. I mean, this basically says everyone that lives in CA is welcome to attend our pools, and that's an inclusion issue.
Eric, thank you. I have to jump in really quick, and I'll get to you, Karen, in just a moment. I understand what Mike said, and I understand what you said. We have one side that says that, we should consider raising rates. I have another side that says we should not. I think what we need to do for guidance for staff is to say, could staff provide us with what these different scenarios would be so we can have a better informed budget discussion rather than going with one or the other here. And I think that's where we should be. I'm going to go to Karen, then Colin, and then Sky, and then Eric. And then, so just reset after we get through Sky and just make sure I get that right, okay? So Karen.
So I am opposed to raising the cap. I agree with Eric. I don't think we need to do that. If you look at the budget analysis that Bill Campbell just provided us, and you look at the letter that we got and how much money we are getting in revenue in excess of our requirements, we are healthy enough that we do not need to raise the cap. So I do not want to see anything from staff that gives me a budget model that raises the cap. What I would like to see from staff is a budget model that zeroes out the play membership. The way that we do our memberships right now is completely inequitable. We only have 25% of residents participating in any programs and facilities. Many of my residents tell me they would love to use the pool, but they cannot afford it. We offer the points program to little kids. Thunderhill Elementary School did not participate in the program 1 year. If you go to a school that's not on CA property, you do not get to participate in the points program. You may have little kids who are working their little hearts out, whether they have a learning disability or whatever, they're not going to get the grade, they're not going to qualify for that. They may have worked just as hard as somebody else who got the grades. So even the points program, and I'll agree with Bill, well-intentioned, but completely inequitable. And I think that, all these people are continuing to pay their annual charge. They are a captive income resource. They are subsidizing these pools, and they never get the opportunity to use them. And it's become a thing where if you're not wealthy enough, you do not get to use the amenities that we have. And I think it's time that we take a serious look at that and start making sure. So the thing that I would like to see from senior leadership is I would like to see a budget model that does not increase the cap, but zeroes out the play membership. And we have plenty of money to be able to do that.
All right. Now, Colin?
So what I'm thinking about is, based on what I'm hearing so far, I think two things can be true at the same time. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing a model from staff of what a cap increase would look like, especially contingent upon if those monies were to go towards new capital improvements and investments in the future. So I look at this that two things can be true, right? We could look at increasing the cap to increase the lean revenue, but also thinking about what are the existing amenities, but also how can we start being creative in the future and what potential could there be if we had additional revenue. I'll say the biggest reason why I'm supportive of exploring the cap increase as a new homeowner in Columbia, it does sit not well with me that there are residents that have lived in our community for 30, 40, 50 years, and I'm paying almost an equal annual charge to them based on how the rate and the cap has prevented the charge from increasing. And we have bought at very different price points for our houses. We have very different mortgage payments, and I think that this is something that we need to consider for young homeowners, how what equity in the annual charge actually means and what it looks like.
All right, thank you. Just putting in one data point here, our budget that we approved last year does show us winding up in the red by the end of the year. So the idea of extra cash lying around may not be entirely true. Sky?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about the points program this year, and I think it might be a good idea to have Jennifer come in and orient us to the points program for 5 minutes at some point. And then the more we know about it, the more we can tell our village schools about it. Bill had asked Colin and me to meet with the director of the Community Foundation of Howard County. And in the past, this has been the organization that the board gives them so much money every year, and they dole it out to organizations who request grants and donations. There were a couple of glitches, and that hasn't been done for the last few years, with the result that there is zero money in our budget this year to fulfill anybody's request for grants or donations. So any discussion on that would be put into the budget for next year. Let's see, in fiscal, in the board for year 2022, when they were planning the budget for fiscal year 23, they asked the staff to come up with 3 scenarios and compare the finances for all 3. Scenario 3 was under the assumption that summer pools would be free. And it's very interesting what they did come up with. You might want to look at that, or maybe we could get a brief summary of that. And finally, we've talked a lot about pools, and I agree they're really important for kids because it's a lifelong sport. However, golf is a lifelong sport. I would not call golf a bourgeoisie sport. I learned to play golf when I was 9, and I played in state, national, and 1 international tournament. So it is a lifelong sport. And then maybe we can also think about making tennis free and the horse center free and the skateboarding ramps at the sports park.
The thing is, Sky, by 2030, we can afford to do all that.
And actually, that's, considering the play membership, that's exactly what we're suggesting.
Point of order?
Sorry.
Yeah, I can't hear that. So anyway, I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, and if we could just all hold our comments until we get called on. I believe it was Eric, Reg, and Paul, and then Ashley.
So I don't understand why members want to raise our annual charge bills, because I'm looking at the financial letter. I realize it's going to be presented later on this evening, but our financial letter says, Sean is very pleased to report that we completed the first quarter $2 million above budget. If we're $2 million above budget, we're doing pretty well. I don't see why we need more revenue if we're already $2 million above budget. I think what we need to do is look for ways to use that $2 million to return it and provide better services to our residents and to provide better value. Because at the end of the day, we're a nonprofit. The goal is not to just bring as much money as possible. The goal is to provide services for our residents. That's what we're here for tonight.
All right, thank you, Eric. Just as a reminder, our first quarter is typically where we bank most of our money, and we've got to make that last through the end of April. So just let's be mindful that if we had a good first quarter, that does not bode well for an entirely banner year. We'll just let that lie.
That's relative to last year and the budget.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple of things that were said that really kind of turned me off. First of all, we just said, well, this side and that side. I didn't realize that we're all, I'm sitting on a side, a voting block, and there's a voting block with there. If there's a independent block, please move over so I can get in there, because that's where I am. I'm an independent. Colin, I was listening to what you said, and to be honest, it sounded more like an idea for decreasing the cap rather than increasing. So that's what I got out of it. Secondly, you know, I would be really, I think a lot of these that you had in your email were good topics to consider. But I would like to see at least the staff be able to give us an idea of what some of these things are going to look like if we go forth with it, such as the pools, such as, you know, different things that we've already discussed. One thing I do want to point out, I'm a golfer, so we're not going to touch golf, period, right? Am I right to this guy? So, okay. But other than that, you know, I think, you know, I think we're all really on the same time. We're just trying to do what's best for Columbia. And, you know, all we want to do is just, you know, let the staff take a look at it and say, hey, okay, this is what, realistically, if we were told to do this, this is how we could do it. And the same thing with, you know, some of the other topics that have come up. Just let the staff do the job and see if they can provide, you know, what it's going to look like. And if after the staff has reviewed it and they said, you know, we've looked at it upside down every which way and it's not working, I understand that. But let's let the staff go in, go through it and decide, hey, based on what you've given us, which is tell us how we can get this done, let's let them do that.
All right. Rich, thank you for grounding us on that. I appreciate it. Nice comments. Paul, and by the way, I'm going to go Paul and then Ashley, and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do about this no-cost pools or whatever, and then we're going to get on with the rest of our strategic plan here so that we know what we're doing here. So please, Paul, and then Ashley, and then we're going to address that head on, okay?
Yeah, so just very high level, when I look at the budget, I think it's important for all of us to look at the strategic plan that we're voting on and then the president's goals as well and make sure that they're adequately resourced and whatever we're voting on allows us to achieve the strategic plan. So anything I look at, I'm going to first and foremost look at it through those lenses. And then with new sources of revenue, I've heard more than once, like in conversations, the county is interested in assisting with like underutilized pools. I think I was in the sustainability committee meeting last night where the director of the Office of Community Sustainability was saying that the county might be potentially interested in paying for certain pools to be opened as like cooling centers, for example. And then I spoke with somebody else who said, you know, the county might be interested in utilizing CA pools for swim lessons. So certain like cost share agreements might be like an alternative source of revenue, bring more interest into underutilized pools, and be a source of revenue potentially. And I know, you know, the county is also interested in just looking for ways to collaborate where there are maybe things that CA is doing and that they're doing and creating like agreements in that way. So it might help reduce costs and create one consistent practice across the county. Yeah, just something to keep in mind as like a way to, you know, generate more revenue and reduce costs.
Sure, and access also.
And access as well.
No, thank you, Paul. We got to get those people in here. Get some names and we'll get them talk.
Yeah.
Eric, I see you, but we're going to go to Ashley and Chris, just really quick. For the purposes of housekeeping here, what time did you get on tonight?
7:32.
7:32. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
After I get done with Ashley, I'm going to ask you to final comments if you have any. So just bide your time there. I'll be to you in a moment. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep, no problem.
Ashley.
Great. I'm going to try to hit all of the points I was keeping track of. So Columbia Association has a lot of phenomenal amenities that I think all of the general public would be great if they could access, and pools, while they're fantastic, they're certainly not utilized by everybody, even if they could afford them or if we were to make them free. I have a few concerns about this. One is that, you know, my parents, we've been here since the 90s. My parents have had zero interest literally any year ever going to the pools. So the idea that they are subsidizing them for everybody to attend is certainly not within their budget. It's not a service that would make sense for the past 20 whatever years for them to have been contributing towards. And I'm sure there are many people in our city of 100,000 that fall within that bucket. However, with that said, I don't think that cost should ever be a barrier for anybody to participate in anything in Columbia. So I think the standards we should look at changing is potentially increasing the HUD guidelines for the low income qualified. And to Bill's point earlier, actually, when I worked at Columbia Association 15 years ago, and we had folks interested in summer camps, which are also a very costly expense for a lot of folks that, you know, have trouble paying for childcare. It was a barrier having to go through the IRS to get the tax transcript. So I think considering alternative methods that are less time consuming, or, you know, working with processes that take weeks to get the information are something that we could consider removing. Because again, cost shouldn't be a barrier, but subsidizing pools for everybody in Columbia doesn't seem like a feasible thing either. And the last point is, Eric, I believe you're the only other person sitting on this board along with me that was on the CA board when the staff had to go through this exercise years ago and showed that it was not financially feasible for us to have pools be free.
Okay.
Can I respond to that?
Well, yes, Eric, yes, go ahead.
So, yeah, I was on the board with you when we went through the exercise. I will also state that we're in a very different financial situation now. I think it's 3 years later. Very different financial situation now. I think now we certainly have the cash flow to do it, whereas several years ago, especially with the COVID concerns, things were a lot dicier then. So I think now there's the opportunity to do so, whereas 3 years ago, I think there was a lot more financial hurdles that we had to overcome. But to your point that you stated that a lot of residents would be upset that they're subsidizing pools. Well, in the first quarter alone, looking at our financial statements, they're already subsidizing our pools to the tune of $2.5 million. That's the net loss on assets for aquatics. The outdoor pools alone is $2.4 million. So our residents are already subsidizing the pools through their annual charge.
So we should increase it? No.
We should allow them to use it. They're already paying for it. We should allow them to use it.
Okay.
The last point I'd like to make is there's been some talk about the points program, and I think one of the problems with the points program is there's a lot of holes in it. So, for instance, I know there's some apartments just north of Swansfield Elementary School, but they're not eligible for the points program because they don't attend Swansfield Elementary School. They attend Clarksville.
I was talking about the low-income qualified program, not the points program.
I realize there's a couple programs, but
Eric, if I could, if you're going to respond to a comment, please respond, but you're going on here. I can't just have a board meeting where we all just sit and listen to the two of you discuss.
Finished.
So I appreciate your comments. I need to be on point about this, okay? Chris, would you like to join the fray?
Sure. I mean, no.
Okay. Understood.
Really, just the thoughts that I have are, I think that we should, part of what we should be doing is looking for ways to enrich the lives of the residents of Columbia, right? And do good in our community. I think that making the pools more accessible to people is a right direction to go, but I think there needs to be a phased approach to it. I like Ashley's idea of kind of expanding for lower income as a way to make it more equitable in a stepped approach. It's always easier to kind of ease into things rather than go whole hog at the beginning and then try to ease back. The other thing is, I mean, I'm not an expert, and from the back and forth that we've been having here, it seems like, oh, well, the majority of our revenue we bank in the first quarter, and then by the end of the year, we're in the red, right? So I think that in order to do the due diligence, it would be beneficial to see a keeping things as it is, which is that's already done, a phased approach to subsidize for lower income perhaps, or however it would be organized. That's not for me to say, obviously. And then for a more drastic approach of making them completely free, right? That way we have that analysis, we can see what each of those different methodologies would produce, what it does to the budget, understanding that we also need to be sure that we're ready for the next COVID, we're ready for the next disaster, right? And that is taken into consideration. We got to make sure that we're not stretching ourselves too far. So those are really my things. I I think that if Sean is agreeable that it would be worth the staff's time to investigate and analyze those things, this is a point that has come up again and again and again. I think it would be fantastic to kind of put it to bed and say once and for all, this is going to work, this isn't going to work, this could work if. So if we could do that, I think that we could all get on the same page rather than talking in hypotheticals and, armchair accounting.
Chris, I haven't had a chance to talk to you in a little while, but you couldn't have set up what I was about to say better. So thank you for your off-the-cuff comments. Just as far as trying to maintain our work here tonight, we're already almost half an hour into this, and we're kind of just talking. We're not actually moving with much of this. I would like to move I'll get to you, Mike. I'd like to move this no-cost, free pool discussion till next month because we have staff here who would love to respond. But next month we have a presentation on community services and operations. And I think we could have a much better conversation about it then. Otherwise, I don't understand where we are as far as the strategic plan here. If somebody, after I talk to Mike, or after Mike gets to speak, I'll let you speak, Karen. Somebody wants to make a motion as far as the strategic plan on this particular issue, we could then vote on that. But my recommendation would be to wait until we have all the information next month, because we're just dealing with hypotheticals and we're dealing with statements that aren't backed up or grounded in any kind of data, and I think it's dangerous to be voting on these things right now. So, Mike.
I guess I thought we didn't do motions during new business, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Okay.
I did want to go way back to what Eric said, because you really grossly mischaracterized basically everything I said. I agree we should be increasing value for the community. And everything I was suggesting, in my opinion, would increase value for the community, all right? I respect that we might have different opinions on how to best serve the community, but please, let's not accuse other people here of, as Reg said, being on the other side or of wanting to take value away. More importantly, on the, I agree that it would be best to kick this to next month, but also, let's all keep in mind that just like 2 weeks ago, one of the goals for the year that we approved was asking the staff to do what I think Chris just recommended and come up with scenarios to analyze how things are going to be, how we can make things more affordable. So I almost think don't kick it to next week, kick it to whenever staff's going to come back with those recommendations. And if that means we're not incorporating it into the budget in this cycle, that's okay. This isn't a crisis. It's not urgent. And so that's the way I would recommend we proceed. If we're not proceeding that way, I have some other input on this, but I'll save that for now. And I do think there's at least two people that have said hey, we should explore whether it's worth increasing the cap. If we're the only two, then let it die. There's no need to have it go forward. But that is something that I think we need some consensus on. And on that point, I'm actually not saying we should increase the cap to increase revenue. So if we want to, I would be okay figuring out, hey, we can increase the cap and then lower the assessment rate to balance out and make it more revenue neutral. I'm okay with that, because my main issue with the cap is the long-term inequity that it creates with new homeowners to the area. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Karen and then Colin.
Yeah, so Bill, you sent us an email earlier today, and then you started this discussion with a very open-ended question to Sky. asking for her thoughts. So everybody's been giving you their thoughts, and I kind of think we've been giving you the strategic direction that you've been looking for. So I was really confused by your comment, like, we seem to be all over the place. And then the second thing is, I really don't appreciate the way that we're all being insulted by being called armchair financial analysts. Everybody here has used experts that they know in the community to look through things, because that's our responsibility. If we're just armchair analysts, then we really shouldn't be on this board. So I thought that was pretty insulting to every board member here who's doing hard work to make sure that they're staying up to date and that they know what's going on with these budgets. So, to the first question, I'm not sure what you wanted from us then, because I feel like we're following what you said in your email.
All right, Karen, a couple of things, and then, okay. First of all, I did not say armchair financial analyst.
You doubled down on what Chris said.
That is your phrasing, it's not mine. I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth, please, okay? What I do believe is that I've heard statements that we have tons of money, that we have lots of money lying around, that this will self-absolve by 2030. And I'd rather hear from our financial experts as to what the reality on the ground is about this, and not look at just some data that is statements that don't have actual numbers on paper.
I agree
and that's who I am. I'm a numbers on paper kind of person, and that's what I was speaking with from my own experience. I wouldn't have used the phrase armchair financial analyst, so I'm sorry if that's what you heard, but that did not come out of my mouth.
Statement, you said he said it better than you could, so.
I was talking more to the general thought of it. It wasn't word for word, so I'm sorry that was taken so literally. So my apology on that. I'll be a little more careful on that.
Thank you.
What I've heard so far in this half an hour is Sky talked about the grants program. Mike gave us a pretty lengthy list, which I think closely mirrored what I sent in my email earlier today, for areas for strategic discussion and for the staff to take a look at. And we've had a lot of statements here about how inequitable living in Columbia is without having the factual data on paper. So I was trying to rein this in so that we could at least provide staff with something to work on. You're right, Mike, we don't take votes in new business. That was my error also. But we need to provide some direction to staff to look at something and come back with the semblance of a budget for FY26. And we've spent a lot of time talking about no-cost pools and the things related to that have been worked at here. I'm almost finished. And I want to just ground, I want to ground what we're doing here so that it is helpful to staff, so that they have something to go with. And Mike and Colin did also talk about the rate, so I apologize for not mentioning that. Sorry, the cap, yes.
Can I make a recommendation? I think that we've asked for several models here. Can the staff produce us a model that shows the play membership zeroed out? Can the staff provide us with multiple models on how we might address, from Chris's suggestions, let's look at different things. That might be super helpful so that we have a comparison of the different things that might be available to us. I'm never going to vote to raise the cap. I'll just say that right now, and I'm not going to vote for any budget that raises the cap. I just think that's super unfair to residents.
Okay.
But.
All right, Susan.
So where we were hoping you'd be in the budget process tonight was to be talking about your strategic priorities. And I think that there was some initial discussion around those, about, the emphasis on sustainability, for example, or open space and those amenities for affordability or accessibility. So that's what we were hoping that you could do, and then that you would refine that and decide on those strategic priorities next meeting. Then we'd come back to you with, okay, this is, we hear what you're saying. These are the kind of high-level elements of making that happen, and that would be the time to then talk about, okay, the tactic, it's not strategic of free pools, it's a tactic, and of raising the cap or lowering the rates. That comes a little bit a little bit later, we need a sort of a higher level perspective here on where your focus is going to be. And some of that discussion's happening, but it's kind of I'm struggling to sort that out. And I don't, if that makes any sense to you.
Can I add to that?
Sean?
And if I could add to what Susan's saying, I think what we're hearing is, what we try to strive to, but the board wants affordability and accessibility. And there's a variety of ways to get that. That could be your strategic priority moving forward. And if that is, then we can certainly work on ways to accommodate that in the budget. So in a part of that is reviewing the annual charge, just reviewing, how the operations are done at the pool, the memberships. There's a lot that revolves around that. So I think affordability and accessibility is probably your primary strategic priority. And that goes along with, sort of what we've heard in the strategic plan as well as one of the strategic focus areas. So that aligns nicely. And then the grants is something that we were planning on bringing up. So we can present some information around that as well.
Mike?
I appreciate that kind of guidance from Sean and Susan of what you're looking for. I think that's really helpful. I think we do need to have further discussion on it because I agree that accessibility is one of the things that I think everyone cares about. I would also throw on there for my priorities, open space, value, like ROI, making sure that the money CA is spending on things is being resulted in usage by people, valuable usage by people, and quality, making sure that the things out there are well maintained and that the staff supporting them continues to do a really good job. For those types of strategic things, the strategic level, I would want to make sure that those things are captured.
Okay. So quality, sustainability, and open space. Those are the three I heard from you.
And value, like ROI value.
Colin?
I, by and large, agree with Mike's list there. I think that, I don't know if this is getting a layer below, but kind of in the vein, I'm still very, I would like CA to be really thoughtful and intentional about capital and maintenance and kind of getting to Mike's point about ROI, about as we look at any kind of element of infrastructure, what makes sense both in kind of a short, medium, and long term that we can start doing and being strategic in this upcoming budget cycle.
Okay. Karen?
I'm not really sure what Colin and Michael just asked for, because there wasn't really anything in there that you can hang your hat on. So like Sean has a goal to create a natural resources plan, right? So in your strategy, like when you guys are saying this is strategic, I love open space, we should take care of open space. Well, what does that mean? When you say you want to take care of open space, are you talking about conserving and preserving what's there, making sure that, everybody's favorite topic, trees? Are we conserving and preserving trees? What are we doing with that? Is that part of the strategy that you want to see, or is that you want to see it used more? Because I heard you guys say open space, but what is Susan supposed to budget for? Right? So when you're talking about these things, what are the tangible things that you're looking for? At the end of the day, what do you want this to be? When it comes to open space, I want it to be conserved. I want it to be preserved. I want us to take care of it. I want to make sure that when we have a massive heat wave, that our open space is in a condition to withstand that. And if it can't, we've got plans in place to keep the open space available for our residents, right? Like the paths. Is there too much sunshine on this path? Is it too hot for our residents to walk on? Because we had a 150-degree day the other day. Did our path melt? Like, those are the types of things I think we should be thinking about, is the resiliency. How are we going to keep CA moving? We're in a climate emergency. The world is, there's a lot of unrest in the world. How do we keep CA serving the residents? But I didn't hear that from you guys. So you said some nice things. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I would like to hear more stuff.
I can have a quick response.
Sure.
So what I mean by prioritizing those things in terms of the budget is CA puts more of a priority of investing money into that budget item at the expense of other budget items, and things
do
are
what?
lower on the value.
To do what?
To make them better, and
If I tell you, Michael, you're in IT, if I
Hold
tell you
on,
make
hold
your
on, let
computer
Mike
better,
talk.
what does that mean?
Karen.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to have a discussion here. Go ahead.
And it's to trust the staff that they know how to use those investments with further discussions at the appropriate time for more detailed tactical level things if necessary. But this is the budget, overarching budget, just moving big buckets of money around, right? So that's what I mean, is investing more relative to other things.
Next. And I think that's what our charge is here tonight, to try and figure out what our priorities are for FY26. Yes, Eric?
So I hear the discussion sort of moving more towards the capital budget, and I do have one sort of tactical request regarding the capital budget. In the past, Cat 3, I'd like to see more clarity to the Category 3 capital budget. In the past, when we approve it, it's sort of like a one number, roughly $4.5 million, but it's unclear whether that $4.5 million goes to open space, does it go to sports and fitness, where's it going? So I'd like to see a little bit more clarity, and also the types of projects it's going to. So I'm looking at the fiscal report, and sometimes I see Columbia-wide pathways, boardwalks, and bridges in Cat 3, sometimes I see it in Cat 2. So I'd like to see a little more clarity of what goes in Cat 3, what goes in Cat 2, and what Cat 3 capital expenses are allocated to go towards.
When we get to that point, I'm going to ask you to reiterate that again, okay? Okay. All right. Are we all talked out here? We got any, Colin?
I was just going to make a point of order that we've got like 16 minutes and change on this
16
confirmation.
minutes. We're landing this thing right on the glide path here. All right. I'm going to throw in something from my point here. I'm going to jump in. I think that we need to make a priority for FY26 a new initiative on data collection and data analyzation. I think that a lot of the things that we do here at the Columbia Association, we struggle with being able to accurately define what we have accomplished because we don't have enough data from the field to understand what our ROI is, our for our given input. The example I always give is we should have an accurate way to count how many people are on the path at what time of day. And if we could actually get the demographics behind that, that would be fantastic. That would better inform, do we need wider paths in some parts of Columbia? Do we narrower paths in other parts? We don't have any of that data. We went through a couple of years here where we battled about water quality. Was that water quality pH and conductivity, or was that water quality and nitrogen, suspended sediments, and phosphorus? And two different discussions of water quality, two different focus areas. And we have some data on water quality, but we don't have periodic regular data. And I'd like to see maybe some sort of exploration of what it would cost to set up some new data collection centers within the organization, and possibly set up an analytics division somewhere under IT to actually take that data and run it through so that it's actually usable, both operationally in making operational decisions, and also at the board level when we're trying to make strategic decisions. So I think it'd be interesting to explore what those costs would be and if we could start an initiative on that. So I want to throw that in there. That probably burned about 3.5 minutes. Mike.
I think I generally agree with you that would be a good thing. I think that was in my initial long list that was too long to probably keep track of. But when I talked about, hey, we really need to invest in knowledge management and decision support for the board, like, I think you might be at a little bit more of a tactical level than I was, but conceptually, spiritually, I think that's a good thing to value. So, and maybe just a suggestion for next meeting, I think we are getting like a list of kind of strategic priorities and values that, like, hey, we'll just bring that list to the next meeting and we can vote on it or amend it or whatever.
Yeah, I think we'll make that list here, and then we'll be able to move from there. And just quick comment for you. I felt I had to give some examples, some tangible examples, than just to rather say, data's great. So, Sky, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, just briefly. It says we're supposed to be talking also about the community survey results. And I read a little bit of that in the board packet and thought it was fascinating, but is anybody going to summarize those tonight or whatever?
You bring up a good point. How about would you like to do that, Sean?
I think Susan's prepared to speak to that.
All right, great. And then we'll come up with our list after that. Just quickly, Susan, thank you for being so patient with us.
Oh, that's okay. I really do not have more of a summary than what has been provided. So I did want to say, though, that, just to point out that we continue to reach people who have not participated in the budget process before. And I think that's been useful. And we did also identify folks who, this time with a question about there being a resident or not. So I also did want to emphasize that the way that the survey was pushed out, we sent it through the CA newsletters. It's about over 19,000 recipients, and also pushed it out through social media. So on social media, there were 28,000 followers. That's just from the organic postings, and about 24,000 more impressions on the paid ads. So the reach is now 60,000 folks in this effort. So we continue to work on growing that touch. So the results of the survey align with a lot of what you're talking about. Again, the community open space and the corresponding amenities was the highest priority, and the community programs and services was not far behind that. I think it continues to affirm that you're on the right track as far as what the input has been to date. So that would be.
All right, thank you. Ashley.
Yes, I was wondering, can we utilize the Village Center newsletters to also promote it the next time?
I thought that we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I didn't see it mentioned in here, so I wasn't totally sure. Perfect. Great. Thanks.
I'm reasonably sure Wild Lake just self-promoted that itself, so.
We asked for that and we shared.
All right. So I've got Colin.
We have 10 minutes.
Oh, well, if we have 10 minutes, anybody else want to come up with some nuggets? Squirrel Hospital. Sky.
Sure. One of your topics, Bill, in your email was amenity underuse and overuse. And some of the amenities will be underused, some will be used to their potential or their max or their threshold or close to it. I think we have to keep some of the amenities that are underused because they could be very important to those people. And I think that's just part of being a good neighbor. I used to work for the tax division of the 9th largest city, and some of the or, for example, at a university, some sports are revenue generating and some sports are revenue ungenerating. So I want us to keep that in mind, to not throw away the underutilized amenities. Either make them more utilized or just learn to live with them as being good neighbors.
Okay, just a quick comment. I would probably look for over or underutilization, probably like a 3 sigma deviation, and see if we've got any that are outside that, and then we would have to have a discussion at that point. Colin and then Mike.
So with time on this coming to a close, I just want to kind of circle back to Sean and Susan. Is the conversations we've been having helpful for you both, or are there other things that we should talk about in the next 7 minutes and change?
I think we have a clear understanding of, as much as there was a back and forth, I think that to Susan's point. We have an understanding, and, I think it aligns with the survey results, and it also aligns with, our work on the strategic plan. So I think in that regard, the board is aligned, and we'll come back and present those again.
Okay. All right, so, sorry, yes, Mike?
I was just going to quick follow up on Sky's. So the underutilization, overutilization, that's what I was getting at with the value and return on investment strategic priority. Like that concept should be wrapped up underneath that. So I disagree with what you said, but just wanted to throw it out there that if you like next week or a month from now when we're voting on this, that you should vote against that value then.
Okay. All right, just to collect our last 50 minutes of thought or so, and Colin, it's okay if we finish early. It's I don't think anybody's going to sweat that. Topics that the board wants in FY26. We had open space, sustainability, raise the cap, whether that is revenue neutral or not.
I would take that off based on what they're looking for.
Okay, all right. We'll take that off.
Or take what off?
Raising the cap. Okay. ROI, value utilization. That's all one thing. Zero cost pools, is that probably how you guys would like to?
Zero out the play membership.
Zero out play membership.
For residents.
Exploring that.
Yes, just like the cap. Just like the cap, like that's like a tactical below.
Okay, well.
Below the radar thing here.
I would exploring. I don't know. I think there needs to be more exploration into that.
I think that's like the affordability, accessibility value, right? There should be an affordability, accessibility value on that list.
Maybe
zero out the play membership for residents.
Well, how about we do affordability, accessibility, and one of the things we will discuss in that is zeroing out the play membership.
Okay.
I think that's.
Yeah, for residents.
Mike?
I just don't think, based on what Susan and Sean have said, that that's the type of decision they're looking for from the board right now, that is a more tactical level discussion, and they're just looking for more higher level guidance at this point. That's my impression.
Okay, we will leave the for residents part off right now. Affordability, accessibility.
Affordability and accessibility, I think.
And it's understood what you have said is part of that.
Thank you.
Okay? Information technology, that's another piece of our budget strategy. Data collection survives, yay, okay, and then grants. Yes.
I don't think grants needs to be on there.
Why is that?
I just don't think that's a strategic, that's a tactical level decision. And I think it sounded like Sean and Susan had a time that they were going to bring that up for the budget discussion, and I did not think it was at this time.
And I want to get input on staff on that first, and then I'll go to you, Karen.
Oh,
Sean?
Yes, we can present information around the grants when we propose the budget. You're correct.
All right.
And then as far as the data collection, this might be nitpicking, like I would, in terms of a value, I would phrase that as like decision support and knowledge management is more of like the value, but whatever, we get it.
That's like GS14 where it's there, man. It's decision support. Karen?
Historically, I think that the board has always voted on grants, right? Like, that's been a board function. I have a problem sometimes with the strategic versus tactical discussion because there are some gray areas, but I don't see how that's tactical.
Susan, I'll be with you in just a second. Sometimes I feel like I've been on this board for my entire life, but it's only been 3 years. But my understanding is that we have an existing grants program, and we just are looking at what the numbers should be.
Right.
And I will get out of the way and let Susan tell us better.
No, I was just going to say that you will vote on that.
Okay,
Right.
great, okay.
It's just not now.
All right.
We're not yet.
All right, Eric, and then Paul, and then we're gonna get out of this so that we get out of it on
grants,
time.
has anyone actually came to us with a request to receive one?
This would be setting up the grants program as our policy states, coordinating with the community foundation, and if nonprofits did come in a year, they would be referred.
So have they made any requests yet, or have any of the other?
We'd have to ask staff on that.
I was just wondering if there were any outstanding requests.
Not that I'm aware of, but I can look into that in more detail.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Paul?
Does anyone have any thoughts on the concept of like resilience, like organizational resilience, like if preparation for like if an IT system goes down, you know, it doesn't just shut down everything. If COVID happens again, it doesn't just like.
Yeah, and the emergency fund being in there.
Yeah, just resilience in general.
Okay. Yeah, I think continuity of operations is how I've always heard it.
Okay.
But how that works into a budget strategy versus a strategic goal, I think resiliency is a fantastic strategic goal. I'm not sure where it is in the context of budget.
Just putting systems, I don't know, just budgeting for systems.
All right. Sky?
Things, but
We do currently have a grants policy and a donations policy.
Thank you. All right. We're all talked out, at least for right now. We will settle for peace, yes. Okay. Chris, any last comments from you?
Nope.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on. First quarter financials.
Susan can provide an update on that, yes.
Okay. So the first quarter financial report and financial statements were presented to the audit committee on Monday night. There was a thorough presentation and robust discussion. The first quarter results are favorable. We did go over some key variances for budget to actual and year over year. And we also talked about the cash position and noted that while our cash continued to increase, it increased at a lesser rate and a smaller amount than last year. And I would expect that to happen as we come out of COVID. What we had been seeing was an increase in revenues that was outpacing expenses because of the return to usage of participation in our programs. But as was noted at the audit committee meeting Monday, the increase in income over last year was at 4% and expenses at 7%. And that is what we often saw in pre-COVID experiences that then would drive us to be borrowing for capital projects. So it really does look more like a return to sort of a steady state. I don't know what normal is anymore, but I would say more steady state experience.
All right, great. Any questions for Susan? Eric?
Do you expect us to need to borrow anytime this year or next year? And if so, why would we need to borrow?
So we don't see any short-term borrowing needs through the first quarter of next year, and that's where we are at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Karen, anything else from the audit committee to comment or report?
I know we don't have any comments from you. No, the audit committee was satisfied with what it heard, and that's why you get to hear about it tonight.
It's great. I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Fantastic. All right. Financial statements, do we?
I really
all kind of the same?
kind of talked about that. One of the things that if you are looking at the details, I don't know whether you know how deeply you go into this, but you might have seen that the annual charge receivables increased in July, but that was and then we ended up collecting a solid amount of cash in August, and often that's a matter of timing. So,
okay, thank you.
That was a question that came up that you might be interested in.
All right. We'll just keep going with the cash reserves policy, emergency cash reserves policy. I'm sorry, Mike?
This is not really a question about the finances, but just on the presentation of it. And I don't know if it's feasible, practical, possible to, in the notes, to separate out kind of the boilerplate that stays relatively the same every report versus things that change, right? Since I think maybe it's all changing, but I think you know, when we start talking about, you know, the trustees and the workers' compensation fund, like I am kind of like blowing past that when I'm reading it because I think it's staying the same. But if things in there are changing, then like I'd like that highlighted in some way, if that makes sense. Like,
we can do that in the presentation. I don't think we can do that in the document, but in
Okay.
the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Cash reserve policy?
Susan?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just want to make a quick note here.
Take a moment, that's
Okay.
fine.
Whoever has official presentation said now.
No, it was, it was earlier, and we're going to skip it. Okay, so as most of you know, and as part of the FY22 budget, the board approved the establishment of CA's first emergency cash reserves, and a lot of that came out of the COVID challenge when CA just did not have the cash on hand and had challenges responding to the mandated shutdown and the inability to bill at the worst possible part of our fiscal year. So we developed the proposal or the policy that was proposed to the board based on our own research and some outside assistance. And and every year since then, in the 3 years that we've had it, we've analyzed this risk matrix. The program is based is a risk-based program that analyzes or estimates the severity and the probability of some things happening that would require cash reserves. So I did want to, congratulate you really, because we did get some really nice outside feedback from our bank and one of our banks about this. Really the sophistication and the maturity of the program. So a lot of the nonprofit research is oriented in that direction, but there's not a lot of guidance, and this is the program's good. I revisited all of the research as part of this 3-year review that's been updated by the organization that provides guidance, Nonprofit Operating Reserve Initiative, or NORI, and their most recent update was in April of 2023. It was not significant changes, and it was still advocating for a risk-based approach. So we do the program, the policy, your policy requires an annual report to the audit committee every year. We did that in July. You have approved ongoing incremental funding of this. So we spread it out over a lot of years because it's it's a big number, and to not burden the organization over the short term. So you're on track to meet that goal. We continue to evaluate the risks, and at this point, the policy says that senior management will review it and evaluate whether we would recommend that the board change it. At this point, we would not. It's been 3 years. I think give it more time with these attributes and risks that are evaluated, and see what happens in the next 3 years. But again, the annual reporting process, you could always make a change.
All right. Thank you for that. Any questions on the cash reserves? Yes. Karen?
Yeah, Susan, what are we going to do with the cash reserve? So if you had the pandemic again, would it just be to pay out salaries? Is that the intent of it? Is it to maintain buildings as well? Because we shut during the pandemic, and I know that's our only recent example, everything got shut down everywhere, right? But some of the things I wondered about is how can we offer amenities when we're in a situation like that? What could we be doing differently? So is some of the money intended to do that? Or is it simply to be able to pay staff so we don't have to let people go and make sure our buildings stay whole, and we can, because I know, I wasn't on the board then, so I had a paid membership, my membership was stopped, and then I picked it up again when everything started to open back up again. So what is that all the money's there for?
So the purpose of it is for emergency use, not for ongoing operations or, a new capital project or something that would be taken care of out of operations. So it would be for an emergency like that shutdown. It would have helped us to better maintain and staff the buildings when they were empty, and just to make sure that that we were being good stewards of our assets. We had a tremendous increase in the demand, in the usage of open space that really burdened that team. And it would have been very helpful to have had the resources to add some contract help to those folks. And then we had a large segment of our workforce that worked their full hours at reduced pay. And it would have been a lot better to not have had to do that. Those were folks, that wasn't people laid off, those were folks working at reduced pay.
Okay, thank you.
Those are examples from that.
Yeah, that's the only scenario we really have right now.
But, you know, in this scenario where the risk factors are, if we have some very high deductibles on some of our insurance, if we are hit with claims that eat that up, that would be the case for that. If, you know, that's another, and we're seeing challenges every year now getting some insurance coverage. So again, that might be something we would come forward and say, hey, we're gonna have some real exposure here. Could we use some of those funds?
Eric?
A couple of questions. One, the cash reserves, are they segregated into a separate account? Or?
No, they're a separate GL account, but not a separate bank account.
Okay, so just what's the rationale for, what are the benefits of not having them in a separate bank account versus having them in a separate bank account?
Ease of investing them, and just not having the cost of another account, another reconciliation, another exposure point for the organization to the outside world.
And the second question I have is, I see 4 risk vectors, 60 days of cash on hand, annual charge revenue, line of credit, and legal, where legal is $7 million. The question I have is, how are these numbers established, and why aren't there other vectors such as, well, if there's a natural disaster and it takes out a lot of our facilities or something like that?
So these were based on the research that was done and the outside assistance in evaluating them, and these are, you know, those are something that we would be looking at. Possible others, or adjusting these. Each of these has been adjusted over time as the movements change. For example, we were very concerned about the line of credit and the renewal, and that's a resource that would enable us to respond to a natural disaster, right? And so when we first started this program, this line of credit was with the new bank. We had some constraints upon it. We were very concerned about that, but since then we've reduced the concern for that renewal. So we're constantly looking at those. And in the original proposal, there's a lot of information about how they were selected and how they were assigned. I'll be happy to circulate that again.
Thanks. And my final concern or question is, at what point are we saving too much? Because I know our villages, they're allowed to save basically 20%, which equates to about 75 days or so. But we're looking to save a lot more than that. So I just would like some information as far as why we're saving more than what we allowed the villages to save.
So I think that's, we've had this discussion before, and I don't think you're 100% accurate on that assessment of what the villages keep for excess cash reserves. And there'll be a presentation in the fall every year, and you can revisit that then. But I think the big challenge, or the big difference, was what is the exposure? You know, who owns those buildings that the villages are in? Who's going to have to keep them maintained or operational if there's a disaster or an uninsured expense? You know, the exposure for the community is at the Columbia Association level, not at the village level.
And that sort of goes back to my original question of, I see legal on here, but I don't see buildings. So is that something that would need to be considered?
So the cash on hand based on operations and the line of credit renewal are the resources that enable us to take care of those buildings. So I don't know how else to answer that for you.
Okay. Right.
And the uninsurable legal expenses, we do I have explained that multiple times, but that's the deductibles. That's our uninsured exposure on D&O coverage, employment practices, and one more, I forget. But anyway, and those are real risks, right?
Yeah, workman's comp, maybe?
that. Yeah, I don't recall. Sorry.
So, last comment. So based on this, we have basically a $19.5 million deductible for legal expenses. Is that where the 19.5 comes from?
No, that's not correct. So there's if you give me a minute, I'll pull that up.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, Susan. All right. We'll move on. Oh, we're to questions only. Fantastic. President's report. Any questions from board members on the president's report? State and local legislation. Mike.
I'm sorry, I thought we were actually going to get a presentation on the president's report. So I'll just say, I don't need it, but I'll just say, in addition to everything looks great. In addition, I just want to say thank you to the CA staff that helped at the Owen Brown Carnival a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Annual MBE. Any questions?
I do.
Yes, Ashley.
First of all, great job for hitting the MBE goals. I know it was the first time in a while, at least. I had a question about the reporting practices, and I was looking into, just generally best practices. I'm trying to pull up the page for it. Oh, I'm not going to find it quick enough. It looked like the category we exceeded is in women-owned. Yep, there we go. So the goal is 5%, and we've hit 10.6. And I was curious because none of the organizations show dual membership, right? Like Black woman-owned. So I was curious what reporting practices we use, because I saw a variety of ways.
So we don't do dual. We report, and I will confirm this, but I'm pretty close to positive that the women-owned it would be women that do not fall in the other categories.
Okay, so we prioritize by the ethnicity or the race options that show up first, and then if they don't. So essentially, women-owned, I'm looking at a bucket of white women, most likely. Right, for those
Probably
businesses?
so.
Okay, I just wanted clarity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate the attention you brought to that. So, anybody else on the minority business? Okay. All right. We're moving down the Inner Harbor. Questions on the Inner Harbor? Mike.
I would try to phrase this as a question. How can we ask Inner Harbor Trust to include some more detail about their financials and fundraising and their financial sustainability in these reports? This is really more of a comment, like Ashley and Reg. Like these glossy reports, like, yeah, it's nice that they are doing a lot of nice things, but I'd really like to know how they're doing financially and see that some of the more under the hood details in these reports.
I didn't make the last meeting.
Yeah, we can ask them to provide that in their next report. And we've asked them in the past, so, but we'll reiterate that.
All right. Sky.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning of the year, Reg, that you said Nina had wanted you to give the IAT report. And do you remember that? And I was wondering what she wanted you to relay to us, or?
So it was just basically from the previous, the meeting I had attended. However, this last meeting, I wasn't there because obviously, but I believe Ashley was.
Okay.
We were both there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and Sean,
So,
I'm sorry.
But we'll ask for it next.
Okay. Anyone else?
We'll get you an answer.
All right. I had one quick tangential question, literally tangential. It looks like Bark Social's coming into its own there. And they are right on the property line with their little AstroTurf walkway there. I was just wondering how that's going along with sharing that border with the Inner Harbor. Have they reported any concerns with Bark Social, or has it been amenable? I was just trying to characterize that.
I think Jeremy can speak to a little bit of this. Yes, we have heard from them.
I think there's going to be a learning curve to be good neighbors, and I'll put it at that. And we're actively engage with Nina and her team on making sure that the interface and how Park Social operates is compatible with the vision and mission of the IAT. So we're actively supporting that integration of that new use in that area.
Glad to hear we're getting ahead of that curve and, or at least ahead of my curve, right? So, yeah, I would hope that they would be good neighbors. I'm looking forward to a positive relationship there. So thank you. Anything else on the Inner Harbor? Okay. Proposed new topics. Okay. Everybody's getting tired. This last few things on the chairman's remarks here. Just a quick, last weekend here in Columbia was pretty amazing. And I just wanted to, I'm not going to be able to recognize everything that happened, but in between Latin night, we had several homecomings that went on at the high schools, the Columbia Bike Around, which CA is a partner in, the Carnival in Owen Brown. There was just so much to do in this town, so many things to do, so many free things to do, actually. It was pretty amazing to get out and about in Columbia and be able to, share with our neighbors and have new experiences and do things. And it was just really great. Kudos to open space staff, the folks who actually put on these activities, everybody that participated in any way. Like I said, I can't even begin, but last weekend was pretty amazing. And I know that this is an exciting time. This is going to be a rainy weekend. I'm sure it's not going to be as good as last weekend, but this is a great time of year. And it's time to open our eyes, get out there. I'll plug the Wild Lake Picnic is going to be moved because of the rain this weekend. So look for coming out and seeing us next to the Wild Lake Boathouse sometime soon. And thank you all. Thanks for a great night here tonight. We have a motion to adjourn. Karen motions. I'll give it to Mike. Mike gets the second. Any opposition to adjournment? We are adjourned. 8:41.
Bill, that Wild Lake Carnival canceled, like, you got no excuse not to make it to